In today's video, we're going to take you through a real basic startup of drawing a simple object in VCarve Pro. This is VCarve Pro 9, and then running a quick toolpath for profile. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is create a new file from the VCarve menu, and from here it's ready to start setting up. We're just going to do a single-sided cut as we start coming down the job setup window to start working away from top down. Right now the job width is 10 inches, and you can see in our rulers at the top we start out at 0 and coming across the top in 1 inch increments. It's graduated at 2 inches, but it's 1 inch increments in between for 10 inches. And then you can see in the opposite axes ruler information on the side as well. Keep coming down. Thickness right now is set up at 0.5. I think default is 1, so if you need to change that to be 0.5, just highlight it and then type in whatever you want. We'll keep this at 0.5. We're running in inches currently, but if you want to run in millimeters, you can go ahead and swap that over as well. We're going to keep everything in inches for now. As I come down, my Z0 position, this is the top of the stock. As you can see this, we are not running at the machine bed. We are actually going to be running at the top of the stock. When we go over to our machine, we will touch off of the top of the stock for the Z0 position. Coming down to the XY datum, this is the XY 0 point, and we generally run in the bottom left-hand corner, knowing that standard sort of XYZ understanding is working in the positive quadrant. We can change this always, but for now we're going to keep this in the bottom corner, bottom left-hand corner as our XY. Model resolution, we're going to keep this at standard fast, and also the appearance is just Canadian maple, but it really doesn't make a difference at this point what we cut out of, because we're going to be telling it our speeds and our feeds. So we'll go ahead and hit OK. We now have our stock set up, and you can see that the toolbar here to the left changed. We now have our drawing toolbar. We have all of our file operations for if we need to go back and change some type of a setup. So we needed to change the size of our stock, we can always do that and come back to change that. Hit OK. If we want to save, cut, there's always undo and redo, very similar to many other files. As I come down here to creating vectors, vectors are lines that can be tooled. I'm going to start with a very simple closed loop vector for a circle. I'll grab the circle tool, and now it's asking for a center point, and then do I want to be telling it in radius or diameter? So I'll just change the diameter, and notice it converts radius to diameter for you, so 2 goes to 4. And right now I have a 4-inch circle. I'm going to come over this way and then just tell it I'm going to put this 4-inch circle here. So by doing that, I've placed the 4-inch circle on my stock, and then I can go ahead and hit apply and then create, and now I have a 4-inch circle. Now if you use your roller ball, you can zoom in and out using the roller ball. If you press down with the roller ball and move your mouse, you can then pan around. You can also do very similar ways by coming up to the pan. However, you far faster to use that tool. Okay, so that's set up. I'm just going to now go ahead and close, and I want to then just select it by double clicking on it, and I can go ahead and pull. It looks like I actually made 2. Maybe I double click there quickly, so I pull 1 off of it, and see, if I want to move something around, I can easily double click on the object. If I want to unselect it, I click off of it. So if I double click on that object and then click on it again, I can then get the move tool to just move this around. These are grips, and you can also change the size by pulling this. However, we now do not have a specific given size for this part. We're just kind of yanking this thing around, and you can shrink it to be different shapes and sizes. So a little bit, we'll get into some editing stuff later when we get into more drawing, but for now we just want to get in how to do a simple toolpath. So from this point, I'm going to come over to the other side. I'm going to grab my toolpath tool palette, and I'm going to hit the little auto hide pin to keep this from disappearing. What I'll do is I'm going to come and start working my way from the top down and just say material setup. Material setup is going to be very much to what we just set up. I'm just going to look and say, okay, it's 0.5 thick, so we're going to be cutting out of a 1/2-inch piece of corian. As we come down, we're using the XY datum. That's the same thing that we set. Material surface is top. And all of this, as we come down through, gap above the material, I do not need any gap above. I'm actually going to be cutting through from the top down. Rapid Z gaps above material, so this is clearance. As the machine is moving, as the bit is moving above the part, this is the clearance it's going to give to the bit to the actual top of the stock. So 0.2 is fine size. Home start position is 0, 0, and the Z gap above the material. So this would be called the safe Z height. This is something where I'm going to just go ahead and change this to 1. 1 inch is the standard safe Z height that we run with our material setup and with our tool. So we'll go ahead now and just hit OK, and that's now set up. And you can see this information here where you can see your XYZ and your safe Z. All right, so that's all set up. I'm going to come down, and the toolpath I want to use is a basic simple profile here. And I'm going to go ahead and select the profile toolpath. And I'm now going to start working again from the top down. Start depth is 0. The cut depth is going to be a 1/2 inch, so 0.5. And then coming down here through the part, you can see that the tool we're going to use is a 0.25 inch end mill. And if we want to go in and actually see this, first I'll just hit select. We want to change that. We have a lot of different tools we can choose from. And if we wanted to go and edit this information, and this is I do want to go in and talk about very quickly because this has to do with feeds and speeds, this is where we're going to go do that. Now as we come in, end mill, 1/4 inch. As I start coming from the top down, we start coming down, the diameter is a 1/4 inch. The cutting parameters, the pass depth, it's saying that each pass in depth it's going to go down 0.125, and that's correct because it can cut in each pass 1/2 the diameter of the bit. So in depth, you can go down 1/2 the diameter of the bit. So to set up my step over, I'm going to go ahead and create the step over of 0.1, which is going to be 40% of the bit. Okay, so 0.1 of an inch, which is 40% of the bit. I generally stay less than 50%, just so we have this slight overlap to make sure we don't have edging left in our part. As we keep coming down, speeds and feeds. So spindle speed, feed rate are very much related, and we will talk more about that relationship. But right now, our spindle speed on our router is set up to be 1200 RPM, and the feed rate is set up to be 100 inches per minute. So with the feed and speeds, what we're actually going to do is set up the standard spindle speed at 13,000, and then we're going to come down to our feed rate, and I'm going to set this up to be 260. Now, I have other videos explaining feeds and speeds with a little more detail, but what this is going to do is setting up this speed and speed gives me the chip load that I'm looking for. Now, from the ShopBot tool, I can look at the chip load calculator and set this up to see that my spindle speed is 13,000 RPMs. My chip load is 0.01, and then my feed would be 4.333. That's in inches per second. So I'm running inches per minute, so I just take 4.33 and multiply it by 60, which comes out to be 259, which I just put in 260 as a nice round number, keeping within my chip load variation. Now my chip load variable size is coming from my chip load cutting data, and this is coming from onzra.com. This is solid surface cutting data for Corian, and I'm looking at a 1/4 inch bit in the chart coming down to what is the 6500 series bit, which is a carbide bit, and that's what we're cutting with. And I look and see it's 0.010 to 0.012. So looking at my chip load calculator from the ShopBot tool, I can see that I am within at the low end of my chip load at 4.33. So going to 260 with my actual chip load or feed rate would be just fine. Keeping my plunge rate set at 30, I'm going to now just keep moving forward and hit OK. Coming down further, I want this to be my finished piece, so I want to set this up. So I'm going to be running conventionally around the outside of the part in a conventional run. And as I keep coming down through, I'm going to set this up to... So we've selected conventional, so we're going to run around the outside of the bit in a conventional manner so that the inside is going to be my finished piece. As I come back down, I'm not going to do anything on my plunge moves or my ramp plunge. I'm going to actually just dive right into the material for each pass. And then I'm going to come in and I want to set up tabs. I want to set up some tabs so that as I finish through my pass, that this part does not become free after the last pass. So I'm going to set up that the length of my tab is going to be small. I'm actually going to go ahead and just make this 1/8 of an inch in length. And in thickness, I'm going to make this, we'll keep it 1/8 of an inch. So we have an 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch tab. That's going to hold this part from flying free. I'm going to go into hit Edit Tabs. But we don't have a vector selected. So what I need to do is select the vector simply by clicking on that shape, and then I can go and hit Edit Tabs. Now what I want to do is I want to actually place my tabs, and I'm going to go ahead and place a tab at the top, and I will place a tab roughly down here on the part here, somewhere about 4 o'clock or so. And I'm going to place a third tab on the other side. And that's going to certainly secure this piece from flying free. So then hit Add Tabs. Whoops. Sorry, place these here like this. Good. And I wonder why they're not adding. Oh, I'm sorry, because I only have constant number there, so we got to do that and add these tabs. There we go. That should work. There, the add tabs are added, and now we're going to hit close. All right, so that's all set up. I have my tabs added. I have a vector, and I'm going to go ahead and now just hit calculate. And now what you can see is this is the toolpath. This is the actual path that the bit will take, and the bit will run around on these paths. Now I'm going to go ahead and set up a quick preview where I'm going to actually then see the toolpath. I'm going to preview visible toolpaths here, and you just saw how that ran pretty quick. So I'm going to slow this down, and I'll go ahead and reset the preview, and then I'll hit play. You can see how the bit runs around, and then if I turn the view, you can see there are my tabs. So those are the tabs that are going to be left after the part is cut, and they keep this part from flying out. Now we're ready at this point to go ahead and save the toolpath out to ShopBot. And so I'm going to go ahead and close the preview. I'm going to select the toolpath and then grab my Save Toolpath tab. Again, I'm going to make sure that this toolpath is the toolpath that I'm exporting. It's Profile End Mill. I'm going to come down and make sure that my tool is the ShopBot Inch SBP. You have to select it from the list if it's not been selected for you. Profile select, hit Save Toolpath. I'm going to go ahead and just save this to my desktop. I'm going to let it be Profile 1, but I'm also going to then put Test after it so that I can differentiate that from the next Profile 1 if I have that. I'm going to go ahead now and take this into my ShopBot viewer, and I'm going to go ahead and watch this preview in ShopBot. So I'll go into my desktop where I saved this thing out to, and we'll just go find my desktop, and I should see there's Profile Test, actually Profile Test 1 and Test. So I've done this before in here, so I'll hit Open, and I'll just hit Start. So I can go ahead and see what ShopBot's going to do when ShopBot's actually running. And this is the preview. So this is exactly what I'm looking for ShopBot to do, is to go ahead and cut out that circle from the stock that I set up. Okay, so from ShopBot, that was the preview here in ShopBot. I'm going to go back to VCarve just so I can show you a few things. If I go from the 3D view back to the 2D view, you can actually see the toolpath. This is the center of the bit running around the part. The arrows are indicating the direction the bit will travel. And you can see the tab locations as well. These would be the tabs that are not cut. This is where the bit will raise above the material. And you can then come back and see this in 3D. So you can see that relationship between the 3D toolpath and the 2D toolpath. All right, hope this helps walk you through the real basics of how to get an object cut in VCarve and moved into ShopBot for the actual tooling and cutting.